Suze, please, this is no time to play the guitar. This is a time to be very mad on the internet about things we don't like.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I'm going to put it on the screen here because it's so shocking. Thus, we consider since quite a while to offer 1 or 2 software upgrades with costs that will boost the player's features towards the head, rack, and stage.
Wow.
Is Kemper putting out some DLC for the profile player? I think the answer is yes.
Which you had to even tell me what those letters meant.
Yeah.
So that's downloadable content for those that
It stands for downloadable content, Susan. I don't know. No one should be playing the guitar until we talk about this and figure it out.
I actually dialed up a tone and everything, and then you stopped. But we can talk about it for sure.
So look, this is gonna kind of get a lot of people, I think, worked up.
Yeah.
I'll put Christoph's statement back up here. This is on the Kemper forum. I'm not making this up.
This is their website forum.
This is their website forum, but I think it's understandable that we have not drawn a profiler at half the price of a profiler stage, but 85% of its features.
Yeah. And this was in response to someone saying what? Like,
well, it was actually just Christoph saying, thank you for all the interest, because people were just posting like, what does it do? Does it do this? Does it do that? Does it do this?
I see.
And basically they spelled out, hey, this unit, does a lot. They addressed will it profile, and actually it looks like it can.
Yeah. So
far that ability's not in there, but they said they have the issue of working out how will we, with the ins and outs that we've put in here, how will we allow the user after you've profiled something to have a proper A and B test? Because we only have so many outs.
The outputs, yeah.
So maybe we'll get profiling out of this. It seems like they're not hung up on can it profile. It's how would we build it in and let the user profile normally with the ins and outs we've selected.
Yeah.
And they also kind of dropped this. Christoph said he affirmed this is correct, but with no ETA. They are considering having 1 or 2 paid updates in the future that will add functionality to the player.
Okay.
Now I want to get your thoughts on this, Suze.
Sure.
Because at first glance, this would be the first sort of DLC content in the guitar world.
Free updates for a decade.
But actually, it's not. It's actually, look, I'm just going to play this little part of the clip from the podcast a couple years ago. Kemper Business Strategy, I don't know what they're up to, but I think they're working hard on something. Ultimately, guys, I think that the iPad editor eventually led to the mobile editor, which is leading to the idea that, or it's leading to the concept of having a profiler, kind of like a little H9 that you control with the software solely. Or, you can do stuff on it, but a lot of the features are kind of, you need the software for. So, hey, there you go. They were working on the app. I thought maybe they'd put out a little pedal like this, but I brought up the H9. And this is exactly how the H9 works, actually. The H9, you can sort of buy the unit, and it has capability right out of the bat, but if you buy an H9 Max or you upgrade it in the app, all of a sudden you get more algorithms, you get more effects. There's maybe a similar thing going on here. But I think it's important to consider why this is happening. As Christoph says there, this unit is half the cost of the larger units, right? It's half the cost of the $16.99, $15.99
stage and
and so having every ability in there, maybe that's not something they can offer. It definitely doesn't have a screen, right?
Yeah.
And so there is some functionality difference, but in terms of, and there's less effects capable at one time, right?
So that could be an update to say you can get all the new non-legacy stuff back.
Sure, yeah. So all the effects that are not in there, like the newer Kemper delays, the newer Kemper reverbs,
Kemper drive, fuzz,
but also morphing.
Yeah,
morphing is an ability that's not in there right now.
How much would you pay for morphing?
This is the question. I don't think the upgrades would get us anywhere near the cost of a stage.
Yeah,
but adding it reminds me of like what we're seeing in the car market. Where I bought a Tesla Model 3 some years ago in 2019, 2018. And one day I noticed the app said upgrade available. And I click on it and it said, would you like rear heated seats? And I went, oh, I can buy it in the app and I can bring the car in and they'll install the rear heated seats.
Yeah.
Because my model didn't have rear heated seats.
But you could add it, yeah.
But I quickly realized that for $300, they would activate it like that. And I went, oh, I have the heaters.
It's already in there.
I have the heaters in the back.
That's interesting.
Same thing. They offer a speed boost if you have a long range model. This was not advertised when the cars came out. It was just, but later on it appeared.
Okay.
The H9 kind of works similar. BMW right now is offering their heated seats. They have a whole package that you have subscribed to. When you subscribe, you get digital updates and better map technology and your heated seats.
But it's like monthly, though.
Monthly. If you get rid of it, you don't get your heated seats.
Which months do you want to be warm in the car?
Well, right.
That's kind of wild.
And so we don't have that subscription thing, but I'll tell you from learning about why those companies are doing that, the problem is that things are getting so expensive to make. And this is a problem made in Germany. This is a product made in Germany, by the way, not in the Far East. And it's made by people who work at Kemper and work for Kemper, and the same people who make it's the same people who make the stage and the heads,
which involves some cost to keep it that way.
Yeah, and I think whenever I see people like criticize, like, I can't believe this thing didn't cost $400. What a miss! Like the Tone X cost $400. You know, I would just point out to those people, you'd be the first one to criticize any company for laying off all their employees and just sending it.
Yeah, it can be made cheaper.
I mean, yeah, right. I mean, so that's the deal, right? Is like you could make, like, Moore's making really cheap stuff. Okay, but when you make a product like this, I would imagine that your margins maybe are not as good as some of the larger units.
Okay.
And there's a lot of competition down here. Again, where it's made, I think is coming in. We don't have a screen. Now, they would say the best screen is already in your pocket, right? And I think that's one way to look at it. The H9 didn't have a screen. It was very much like this. The H9 was like, and this is really what this pedal reminds me of. I feel like we got like an H9 Kemper. It's like, dial in your sounds and take them with you. And if you need to make some adjustments, it's possible on the unit, but you will probably want to take this out and do something with it. Okay. That's always how I look at the H9.
Didn't the H9 have a little screen on it, though, so you could see, like...
It just says the name, and then what you could do is all the parameters that are in there, you would basically have access to like 2 or 3 parameters.
Oh, that's right.
And you just had the big dial. And so a lot of parameters you could not
X
even
and
access.
Y and all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So there was a screen that told you which algorithm you were on.
Like a timeline screen. It's like you're on 01C or whatever.
Exactly, exactly. So it's that thing of like, dial it in at home.
Yeah,
and then take it with you. And some adjustments are, but it's really not designed for that.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that by introducing something small like a micro transaction here, a DLC, it's the opportunity for maybe 30 to 40 something maybe percent of users to pay a little more, get some more functionality. But overall, if you charged $100 for that, if you charged 150, if you charged 50, I don't know. I don't know how they're going to break it down.
Yeah.
But that added on to the margin of the product that might already have some compression going on in the margin, kind of actually makes the average margin on all the units go up.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, my mind is going to a lot of different things right now. So one is it can do these things, but we've limited it. You know, it's like your car. That's kind of that's a weird thing, because it's like, you know, the whatever is inside the pedal making it do these things, we've already paid for that. Like, that's already been delivered to us. It's not like they didn't put it in our product and shipped it to us cheaper. It's there whether we unlock it or not. And so that would be the first thing, is like, you know, like you had heated seats in your car the whole time.
Yeah, this is a little different, because
it costs money to put those in.
I mean, this is a little different because those, you know, the reverb algorithms aren't like in there. It's not a physical thing you put in there. This is a processor and a hard drive.
More like the DSP, you know, like they didn't limit the DSP so we couldn't get those reverbs. They left it in there, but we just don't have access to them.
We talked about this. It's not, there's not like a perfect amount of like they're using chips. It's not necessarily the case that you can get those same chips with 15% less DSP. You know what I mean? It's not like
So what do you think the reason was to limit the amount of effects until you pay for them? What's the reason for that, you think?
How can you offer, I mean, if you offer a stage basically shrunken down to that at $700, would anyone buy a stage anymore?
Okay. Yeah. So it's your own product line kind of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Still
Would
competing,
anyone
yeah.
buy a stage?
That's interesting.
Would anyone buy the bigger units? You know?
Yeah.
And they might, I don't know what they're making. I mean, this really brings up the question of like, their strategy might be they have given us a product that is so like, I mean, look at it this way. You could look at it this way too. This product is so powerful in this little box that they could be making almost no money on it.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, because they've shrunken the whole thing. I mean, if they gave you all the ability of the stage and of the thing, and they shrunk it down to that little unit, they didn't charge the same amount for it.
Yeah.
Like it is half the cost of one of those. So the other way you could look at it is like, is there another unit that does everything this thing does? So even the HX Stomp has basically half the DSP of a Helix.
Right.
Because you only have one line.
Yeah, one of the top
So
line.
I mean, you quite literally can only put in half of the stuff
Yeah.
that you can put in a Helix. There's no ability to give you more out of your HX Stomp. There is no Helix that is half the size of a Helix. You just have this little brother unit.
Right.
It looks like what we may have gotten was not as so much a little brother unit, but an actual mini Kemper that if you buy it, it's like a little brother unit. And if you pay the upgrade, it becomes like a full mini Kemper. Now you don't have the screen, and you don't have all the ins and outs.
Yeah, you can't add that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we noticed, like when we were looking at the unit, was like there's definitely some concessions made on the ins and outs on the back. They could have given more loops. They could have added, stereo XLR outs.
Yeah.
But when you look at the back of the unit, you realize there's no more space to put anything.
It would have been way bigger.
It would have had to be a larger unit. And then people might have said, this doesn't fit on a pedal board.
Yeah.
So you're sort of like, I feel like when you design a product like this, I feel like we're observing like the give and take of like,
For
what are we
sure.
designing this product for? Who's it for?
Yeah.
What do they want?
Well, you've seen it with Line 6 coming out with the Stomp XL, and then the Stomp. And then you've got the smaller unit that only does one effect at a time, like the HX1 or whatever.
Yes.
You know, so you've got like these little, like, which model do you want or which tier do you want? You talked about H9 Max and Core and like all the different. So this feels like they've delivered hardware to all of us and they're asking each user, are you happy with it as is? Or would you like to upgrade it for more money? That wouldn't have been different than them just coming out with an expensive, one and a middle tier
levels.
one. Yeah, like all at once. The Player Core, the Player Max, the Player whatever,
Yeah. And I mean, we have no ETA on these. It's just kind of been confirmed that like, we've been considering this for a long time. Can we offer something? I think a lot of people, this is what I think at the end of the day, a lot of people are going to say, this is unfair. They should have just given us all the functionality in this unit.
To begin with, at $799 or $699,
right? And this, so we're at $699. That's the other thing is like we're at $699. If they came out, if they built everything they could build in, like for example, if they put in morphing and the new reverbs, let's say, we still would be looking at a unit that can't run 8 effects at once. It can only run 4.
Yep.
It still has less ins and outs.
Yeah.
Where would we want that to fall, price wise? I think like if it had come out at $1099, would we have complained?
With the same unit, but just all the capability?
Yeah. And then like for someone like
people
you...
would complain.
people would complain. But like for someone like you, because I think like you and me are interesting examples of this, I more want to use this unit where I want the morphing and I want the new reverbs and I want everything I can get. Because I actually want to use this as my amp and delay and reverb. And then I want to work in other pedals on top of it. But like you said in the last video, you actually just want the amp sounds.
Yeah.
So I would think actually it's like, it's a good thing for a consumer like you who just wants the amp sounds that there is the option to buy it at the $699
at the lower level. Yeah.
Because really you're like, I don't think I'm going to utilize all of this, but I want my Kemper amp sounds on my board.
Yeah. And just to be clear, I love Morph and all those other things, but to me, and we had a interaction in one of our comments on another video where I said, to me, the stage is the superior product for sure. Hands down. I'd way rather have the stage than the player.
And I would agree with that.
But the way I use the Kemper is I want it to be all in one. But if I'm going to build a board and want Kemper sounds, they've given me an option. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll take one of those and put it on the board. But I'm the kind of guy that would have paid less for no effects, just profiles, even smaller. That would have been killer.
Would you have paid $699 though for no effects in this unit at all?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. So there you go.
I mean,
right?
yeah.
I mean, like,
And people are going to say it's an expensive Tonex. Yes, it is, but I really like the Kemper sounds, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, and yeah, I mean, if we've brought up before, if you don't want all the features that are in it, there may be cheaper things, like the UA pedals.
Yeah.
Do come in cheaper, and you don't have as much optionality.
For sure, great options.
The Tonex has no effects.
Yeah.
And but it, it's a great product for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
This is something else. This is like, I mean, the other thing is this: it takes the full rig, and you have sort of all the options. You don't have all the effects. What we saw when we looked at it was, it looks like some of the reverb sort of get translated from the natural verb to the easy verb. And it looks like whenever there's the effect there, what we just have is really less delays, less verbs, a couple less drives.
Yep.
If we get those, if I could get those for $100, does that sound like a good deal?
Not to me.
I think that actually sounds like
a lot of people would, yeah.
I mean, yeah, if I could get all the rest of it. I mean, because then I'm still looking at a fully functional mini Kemper at $799.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's still half the price. If they charge $200, I'm just trying to think, like, if they had said to the...
It's actually really confusing to my brain, like, to try to figure out for the consumer, is that worth it? And if I keep adding them on, is it getting close to a stage? I realize that the size is different.
We've got a lot of room to go before you get to the stage price.
For sure.
Right,
yeah.
the stage is $15.99.
Yeah.
And this is $6.99. So... we have a lot of room to go.
Yeah, well, it's funny to me that people are like, I want more buttons, I want more output. And they just keep describing the stage.
Well, they just keep describing the full Kemper, in a little box. If they had come out with two products, this is like a fun hypothetical for people. If they had come out with two products, they said, hey, we have two products. We have one that is a player unit, amp only. We call it the Kemper Amp Player. How much would you want that to cost? I think a lot of people would have said in line with the Tonex.
Yeah.
A little cheaper than what we got now. Yeah, $399. Right? If now they price this unit right where the HX Stomp is, which is interesting because the HX Stomp is an example of a unit that is the little brother unit to a larger unit, the Helix, with less DSP, the ability to run less stuff.
Yeah.
Now they don't limit which algorithms you can run, but you can't run as many things. There's half the DSP.
8 blocks, yeah.
We kind of, that's where they price this, right next to that.
Yeah.
Here's like a little brother version. If they had said, we've got two, the amp only and the mini Kemper, full power mini Kemper. I think the question people have to think about is what would a fair price for a mini Kemper be? Like, what would you have paid and thought, the stage is $15.99. Would you have been happy with a mini Kemper at $9.99?
And just to be clear, that mini Kemper to you is all that ins and outs.
Everything.
It's just like a carbon copy.
I don't know about the ins and outs. Like, maybe there's a couple less ins and outs, but whatever. I mean, conceivably, if you put it on a pedal board, you might not want all the ins and outs.
Okay.
The Kemper has the ability to do two loops.
But if it answered all of the complaints, basically.
I'm saying full effects, full morph. You literally drag from one unit to the other. It's just a smaller, Kemper. Because even the stage has a couple less buttons than the head and the rack.
Then what you said before is right on. Who would buy a stage anymore?
But what would you pay for that mini Kemper?
$1,000.
So if this unit, if they charge less than $300 for the upgrade, you're right there, aren't you?
You could, you would basically make it that minus the ins and outs.
Right,
I see a lot of people talking about the XLR. You can't change that. You
can't.
A lot of people talking about, I want a loop. You can't change that.
So Christoph talks about everyone should go on the Kemper forum and sort of read, because he talks a little about why they designed it one way or the other, and he does talk about. He says, basically you have an XLR out, and if you want to run stereo out to other pedals and then out, he points out other units on the market also only offer you a TS out, like a tip sleeve, quarter inch. And he's saying, and if usually a sound man would be delivering to you XLR cables and direct boxes. But if they don't, you might want to mount your own to your pedal board. Like, that is kind of, I think, the state of the market right now.
Yeah.
Like, there's not really any amp pedals that give you dual XLR out.
Yeah, like the UA don't, and
none of them,
and the Tonex doesn't. Yeah.
And the reason for that is that when you put a unit like this or any of those amp in a box on a pedal board, you usually run delay and reverb after it.
Yeah.
So if you had the XLR, What
Yeah,
would
I
you do with
wouldn't
it?
use
Like,
it,
I mean,
yeah.
it would go unused.
Yeah.
And then if you wanted to bring it in, you'd need to do ins and outs to get loops to just go back and use those same XLRs. So you'd need even more quarter inches to create loops to get it back to the cam. So it's like, okay, I get why that's not in there. Because when you practically put this on a pedal board, the need for those kind of quickly, a lot of people wouldn't end up using them anyway.
Yeah,
So
totally.
it's
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It's tricky, man.
I mean, you just said you would pay $1,000 for a mini Kemper.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a fair price? I go, yeah, probably. I would have paid $1,000 for a mini Kemper, and I probably would have said, hey, it's a full-fledged unit.
Shrunk down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wonder what they're going to charge.
Yeah. And I wonder if it will be like a la carte. Like if you can add certain things to it, you know, like morph or,
Yeah.
you know, the effects.
Christoph says 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So it sounds like something they haven't decided yet.
Okay. I'd love to see what you think about
Yeah.
updating. Are you going to update if it costs money? Yeah. I mean, I'd love to see a cheaper unit. I've said it before without the effects on it. Would you buy that? I'm just curious to know, but yeah.
Let us know. Would you update? How do you feel about the updates? HW.
Can I at least play the sound for a little bit?
Go ahead.
It's got like a phaser on it.
I didn't even run the Kemper to the DAW.
All right, Sue's out.